What is going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley, and welcome back to Steelers Almighty. Look, I apologize. If you can't tell, I'm nasally. I'm still sick. I'm fighting my ass off, but it is what it is. But the show must go on. The offseason of the Steelers isn't going to stop because Big B got sick. That's not how this works. So we got to continue to bring you guys content. So be patient with me if you hear me. I may cough, take a little extra sip of water from time to time. I got these cough drops in. So I just want to let you guys know ahead of time. So I appreciate your patience with that. But we got a really good show for you guys, man. Look, we're going to talk today about George Pickens. Is George Pickens a true wide receiver number one? We're going to break that down. Also, should the Steelers, just build the roster and then have the QB come along later? There's a lot of talk about that right now, about how maybe other teams have built up around it. Is that something that the Steelers should actually think about doing? Then how important is the defensive line to the Pittsburgh Steelers' success? I happen to think it's extremely important, but we're going to break all that down. And then Big B's mock draft. We got another mock draft for you guys that we are going to break down. 7 rounds of a mock draft of what the Steelers are going to pick. So we got a lot of stuff, like I said, a lot of stuff going on. That's good. That's good. Again, just be patient with me. I apologize. I don't want to be sick, but it is what it is, man. But I appreciate everything that you guys have done, all the support. Remember, you can always find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Steelers Almighty. Anywhere that you have social media, you can find Steelers Almighty. And also anywhere that you happen to get a podcast, if you like the audio version, you can find us there on Steelers Almighty. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in those comments like you always do. Hit the notification bell so you always know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. And also don't forget to sign up to become a member of Steelers Almighty. We have 5 separate levels that you guys can sign up for. A lot of content over on that side. So for members only. So I appreciate all the support that you guys have shown us. But let's get into this, man. Let's get it. So first things first, George Pickens, is he a true number one receiver? Now, I've said many times, and a lot of you guys have said the same thing, as far as talent, just sheer talent, George Pickens is a top 5 guy. I don't think there's any, and maybe you could say top 10. Me personally, I say top 5. Just talent. His catch radius, his hands when he's focused, his ability to catch one-on-one, 50-50 balls, just the things that he can do as a talent, he's top 5 in my opinion. But there's more to it. The thing that is holding him back for being a number one receiver in a lot of people's opinion is his maturity. George Pickens' maturity is the issue with all of this. We've seen the tantrums on the sideline, the tantrums on the field, the penalties that he gets, arguing with fans, trying to fight fans, after every catch, whether it's a 5-yard slant or a 2-yard screen pass, the getting up, the getting in somebody's face and the pointing. Look, I'm all for guys having fun. I want guys to express themselves. Talk trash. I'm all about that. But there's a time and a place for all of that. You have to understand when the time and place, and that comes with maturity. Every catch doesn't require that. Every scenario doesn't require that. There's a time and a place for everything. And it just doesn't seem that he understands that, and then the interviews, the stuff that he does in the interviews, it's baffling. It's just mind-boggling with a guy that's so talented that here we are about to be 4 years in and he cannot put it all together. I don't know. The one thing that's really bothersome to me, and I know it's bothersome to you, and it's got to just be maddening for coaches, is the loafing. Not even the loafing on run plays. I get that. You know, run plays, it is what it is, man. Especially you're a wide receiver and the run plays away from you, it is what it is. I get it. But on pass routes, like routes, they're throwing the football and you're going 50, 70% on routes because maybe you're not the primary target. So that is inexcusable. And we've seen it over and over and over again. It's not just, oh, this happened one time. No, that's not the case. That's not the case. And it's stuff like that that drives me, and I know a lot of you, insane. For people that are like, man, we want to give George Pickens an opportunity. Now, another thing that's troubling is his route running. Now, every wide receiver in the National Football League isn't spectacular at running routes. You could also say, well, maybe it's the scheme, you know, because basically his routes are go balls, quick slants, and stop routes. Maybe an occasional flag, but that's it, or a corner. That's all. That's all he does, and is it the scheme that's not asking him to do that? Or is he just not capable of doing that? I got to believe it's probably a little bit of both. You know how I am. I'm never going to say that it's always this or something like that. You can never say that. As speaking in absolutes, when you're talking about football in terms of this, is silly, in my opinion. So it's probably somewhere in the middle of there, a little bit of both. But he has to be better than that. He's got to be able, first of all, the coaching staff has to help him, but also he's got to help himself. He's got to master those things. You look at a guy like Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown wasn't the biggest. He wasn't the fastest guy out there. But now, don't get me wrong, he wasn't slow, but he wasn't the fastest guy, but he put it all together. But the way AB worked and worked on his craft, nobody was going to outwork him. And you add in everything else that he brought to the table, that's what you get. George Pickens has got to find some of that. I'm not saying everybody's wired the same, but he's got to find some of that. So he's got to find some instincts where he can be just an absolute dog on the field and just start to excel more than what he has. He's looking for a contract. He's going to be looking for a contract. And I would tell George Pickens right now, if he holds out one day looking for a contract this offseason, the Steelers should say, we're not going to pay you. We're going to franchise you. We're not extending your contract. If he holds out one day, because he hasn't done anything at this point to warrant the Steelers saying, yeah, we're going to give this guy $30 million a year. Come on, man. And if his agent had any sense, he would be telling him the same thing too. Look, George, we get it. We understand you want to get paid. We want to get paid too. But you got to do something to earn it. Some of the stuff that you've done, it's not warranting giving you a huge contract at this moment. And sure, the agents are going to work the Steelers to try to get it done, but the Steelers are going to say no. Or they should say no. But we'll see. But the thing that I'm going to look, I get on Pickens a lot because I know how talented he really is. But what I'm going to say is the opportunities that he's given to be a number one receiver aren't the same. For me, you have to force feed the football to George Pickens. And that didn't happen enough with Russell Wilson as the quarterback. Justin Fields, he threw the ball to Pickens. He gave him opportunities. There's a couple long passes that got called back, a touchdown that got called back. There's things that happened. Justin Fields gave him opportunities. Russell Wilson didn't give him enough. If it's one-on-one coverage and you got a go route with George Pickens, throw the football. Throw the ball and let him go make a play. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but give him the opportunity. They didn't do that enough. And so when you say, is he a number one receiver? Other places would give that guy the opportunity, but I don't think that's George Pickens' fault. I think that's more offensive coordinator and quarterback issues more than it being Pickens himself. Because I think Pickens, if you force feed him the ball and give him more opportunities, I think he can produce more. Is he a true number one? I don't know, but has he gotten true number one targets? Has he gotten true number one, attention from his own staff, from his own quarterback? I'm not sure. And that's kind of where we are with Pickens. I like him. I think he's good. If Justin Fields ends up being the quarterback, this will help because, like I said, Fields threw him the ball. He trusted him. I don't think Russ trusted him. And I think that's part of the problem, or at least was part of the problem. So we'll see, man. Let's get to the poll question. I like George. I think George is a good player, but he's got to mature, man. Got to mature. Poll number 1. What do you think is George Pickens' biggest issue affecting his performance? Is it maturity and off-field distractions, route running consistency, offensive scheme limitations, or lack of quarterback play? I mean, you could say all. You could put E, all of the above. But for this poll, is it A, B, C, or D? I'll be interested to see what you guys have to say about that. Because George Pickens, again, ultra talented, but I think we just need more. We just need more. And the team has to give him more. They have to help him. They have to help him. Let's move on here. So, should the Steelers upgrade the roster and kind of worry about the quarterback later? And before people blow a gasket, what I mean by that is get a bridge quarterback and build up the roster as best as you possibly can. And then next year, hey, we'll go get us a quarterback. Or a year from now, or 2 years from now, excuse me. Is that what the Steelers should do? Because my thinking is, look, I like Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is in the upper echelon of quarterbacks in the National Football League, but he's not the top guy. He's not even in the top 5. A lot of people don't think he's in the top 10. Okay. But that roster sure is. That roster that Philadelphia has put together, that's in the top 5, if not the best roster in the National Football League. Is that what the Steelers should worry about more? Is just building up the roster and getting a competent quarterback, a competent one, but make sure that that roster is airtight. So basically, there's no great options currently out there for the Steelers to get this year. Like, there's nobody that you could say, oh man, the Steelers got to have this guy. Nobody. As far as free agency, as far as rookies in the draft, there's nobody that's a franchise changer or that you would say is a franchise quarterback. Now, that doesn't mean that none of that can happen. That doesn't mean that the Steelers can't get a draft a rookie 3rd or 4th round and they turn into something, but we never know. But from the outside looking in right now, it doesn't appear that that's the case. Even if that was the case, you can still build your team up around. Look at the San Francisco 49ers. Now, granted, in the same draft that they traded a ton of draft picks to get Trey Lance, at the end of the draft, they took Brock Purdy. Well, they were paying Brock Purdy money, and somehow Trey Lance got traded to the Cowboys. Cowboys got fleeced into that, but that's a different conversation for a different day. And they built up around him. Now, they didn't win the Super Bowl, but I would say that the 49ers were pretty daggone good for 3 years with Brock Purdy. They've been pretty good. When guys are healthy, they're good. And that's the thing. It's like, you don't, and I'm not saying that the Steelers should take a guy in the 7th round so nobody go off the deep end. All I'm saying is I think it's more important to have the roster. Can you get a serviceable guy? somebody that's serviceable, that's good at the job. They don't have to be elite. They don't have to be extremely good, but somebody that can carry the ship, more like a game manager type. Is that what we're looking for in Pittsburgh? You know, because Jalen Hurts, while he makes some plays, he's more game managing. They're running the football. He's getting the ball, distributing it to his playmakers, doing exactly what they're asking them to do. Why can't the Steelers do the same thing? You know, with all the cap space and everything that the Pittsburgh Steelers have right now, here's something to keep in mind. If you think the Steelers right now, it's like $62 million with moves. If they restructured everybody, first of all, if they extend TJ Watt, restructure Highsmith, and restructure Cam, restructure Fryermuth, restructure Patrick Queen. If they do all of that, the Steelers can have over $100 million. Oh, yeah, you have to restructure Minka, too. That's over $100 million in cap space the Steelers could have this offseason. Not next offseason, this offseason. Now, yes, eventually you can't just keep kicking the can down the road. You'll have to pay the piper, but the salary cap goes up. You get smart cap guys in there. Yes, you can manipulate it. Teams do it all the time. My question to you fans would be, would you want to see the Steelers do that and then go for it for the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years, and just say, we're trying to win a Super Bowl right now? And restructure everybody, get free agents in, spend top dollar for a wide receiver, for a D tackle, for another wide receiver, a corner, and say, you know what, we got all this money. We're going to spend this money and try to get the best football players that we can possibly buy, and say for the next 2 years, we're trying to win a Super Bowl. Me personally, I think the answer to that is yes. Why the hell not? What else are you doing? If the goal is to win a Super Bowl, and look, the Steelers have to spend 90% of the cap space, of the cap, so they got to spend the money. Well, if you have to spend it, then go spend it. And go big. Get the best guys. Go win. I think that's how you do it. You got to build the roster. You have to build the roster. I'm not saying you can't win. Look, everybody isn't going to draft Patrick Mahomes. Okay? Everybody's not drafting that guy. And he still plays. So other teams have won by building up around their quarterback. That isn't necessarily the top quarterback in the league, making the top money in the league. You need a good one. You need somebody that can read a defense, get the ball out of his hand, just let his playmakers make plays. You need that. But you don't have to have the best guy in the league. Heck, the last time the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, you don't even know who they were throwing to. They had Mahomes, and he was the best guy in the league. But everybody else wasn't. Well, if you don't have Mahomes, which nobody else does, then you've got to be able to put better pieces around who you do have. And I think that's the key. I think the Steelers can do that. Hopefully that's something that did. Look, Louis Riddick is talking about Tyler Shuck. He loves Tyler Shuck. He thinks it's the Steelers. He's talked to Arthur Smith at the Combine, and Louis Riddick is convinced that the Steelers are going to take him. If the Steelers take him in the 3rd or 4th round, I've said this all week. If they do, he needs to be the starter. He needs to be the starter. And just ride it out. Strong arm, smart. Tyler Shuck's problem is injuries, broken bones. Not ligaments or tissue damage or anything like that, just broken bones, which that's a lot better than, having your knee or your shoulder or your wrist or your elbow. Broken bones, they heal. Doesn't necessarily require surgery where it's never the same. Not the same with a broken bone per se. So, I don't know. Is that what they do? I'm a firm believer in building up the roster, though. I'm a firm believer in that, and just whatever quarterback we get, make sure he can do certain things, and then tailor the offense around him, by God, and make this thing work. I'm tired of the nonsense. I'm going to go off on a tangent, and I don't want to do that. I'm just tired of the nonsense of what the Steelers offense has been for the last 4 years. I'm over it. Done. Let's get to the poll question, people. Throw another cough drop in. Poll number 2. With ample cap space available, which strategy do you believe will most benefit the Steelers moving forward? A, drafting a quarterback. B, spending in free agency. C, focusing on player development. I know you guys aren't going to like that. And D, trading for a star player. And the reason I said focusing on player development, we've been doing this almost a year. I've never heard anybody talk about how the Steelers have developed a bunch of guys. Not enough people believe in the coaching staff. That's why I said that. Pardon me. So that's a good question, too. We got a ton of cap space. What do you think the Steelers should do? Draft a quarterback, spend in free agency, focusing on player development, or trading for a star player? Very interesting. Let's move on. And we are at halftime, people. So appreciate all of you guys, man. Thank you again for all the support that you guys have shown us. We really, really do appreciate it. Me and my producer who's on the back end, you see all the graphics that come up on all our shows. He does all of that. It is outstanding work. Again, we're growing. I don't say this much anymore, but I feel like I can still say it. Steelers Almighty, still fastest growing Steelers channel on YouTube. I can say that and be confident with it. So I appreciate all the support. Look, you know how to support us with super chats, all that good stuff. But make sure if you want to become a member and help support us that way, make sure you guys sign up. Like I said, we have 5 different levels of membership that you guys can sign up for. We have all kinds of content over there for members only, whether it's on a different page, whether you get all 22 stuff for full games, whatever it may be. And what is your fancy? We've got something there for you guys. So make sure you go sign up there. So we appreciate it. Let's get back to it. Okay. So next up, defensive line. How important is the defensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers? So we saw at the end of the year, the Steelers defense was worn down. A lot of different reasons for that. One, they were on the field a lot because the offense couldn't do anything. 2, the defense just wasn't as good as what maybe people thought. 3, we were playing some really good football teams. I mean, excuse me. There were some teams that two of them went to the Super Bowl. One of them obviously won the Super Bowl. And the Ravens, you throw them in there a couple of times. And we know the Bengals weren't a horrible team. I mean, the Steelers played some really good teams down the stretch. They just did. So there's a lot of reasons for it. But the defensive line didn't look good. Now, again, I incorporate the outside linebackers as part of defensive line. Hell, the Steelers were in nickel defense 58% of the time this year. So you might as well count Highsmith and Watt as part of the D-line. Last 5 games, TJ Watt was hurt. He wasn't himself. We all saw it. We all knew it. And also the way that teams figured out how to block the Steelers. We were so vanilla in our scheme, our defensive scheme. We didn't stunt. We didn't blitz. We didn't twist. We didn't do anything but, okay, I'm lined up here, and I'm just going to try to beat you. Teams figured that out and just said, okay, we're going to chip TJ Watt. He's hurt. So on his initial move, as long as you can slow him down, you're fine. We're going to do the same thing on the backside with the back to Alex Highsmith. We're going to chip him. We're going to double team Cam Hayward. And we don't think your other interior rusher can beat us one-on-one. And that happened. That's what happened. Because we were so vanilla, teams figured it out. Now, you're saying D-line, how important is it? How do you help that? Well, first off, it goes back coaching. You got to help them. You got to come up with some stuff every now and then, some twists, some tricks, some slants, some blitzes. You got to help them. You can't just be vanilla and this is the only thing we're ever going to do. The other guys get paid too. They're professionals too. So it's not just about line up and beat somebody every single time. Every now and then you got to trick guys. You got to fool them a little bit. Steelers didn't do that. So that's something that's got to change. But we also got to get a little younger. We got to get better. Look, I've been screaming about getting Keanu Benton in his natural position. He is not a nose tackle. He's just not. Doesn't mean he doesn't try. Doesn't mean he doesn't want to be. But Keanu Benton is not a nose. First of all, he's not big enough. He's 305 pounds. 305 pounds. And even in a base 3-4 or even in a nickel setting where you're getting double teamed, that's just not big enough. It's just not big enough. He is a 4-eye/5 in a 3-4 base defense, and he can slide out to be a 3 technique. That is what Keanu Benton is. The quicker that the Steelers recognize that and just get him in that position, the better off we'll be. Because I think he's got some explosiveness that we haven't been able to unleash because of the position that we have put him in. Get somebody in there that is more natural for that position and let him move to where he can be. It's also some aspects of the defense. It's going to help in coverage. You know, you talk about the D-line and we talk about playing complementary football. Well, the better the pass rush is, the better the coverage is. So even if our coverage isn't great on the back end, if that quarterback's having to move around because guys are winning up front, that's better for the back end. Same thing on run defense. If we're occupying guys, multiple blockers, and not moving, it allows our linebackers to run around and just go make plays. Well, we got to get better. That's how important the D-line is, to the Steelers and basically to every defense. But the Steelers especially, because that's what we predicate our linebackers with speed. We want them to be able to run around. Look, Patrick Queen, the guy runs around. Now, I'm not saying he had the greatest year, but he needs some help too. Can't just all be on him. And when I mean help, from the D-line, from the coaches. But it starts up front. Everything starts up front. Now, obviously, that's on both sides of the ball. That's with me. But everything starts up front for the defense. The more push you can get, the more blockers you can occupy in the run game, the better off this defense will be. They got to get younger. They got to get more athletic. They got to get bigger. It's no knock against guys that were currently there or were there in the past. That's not a knock against them. It's just what has to be done. Get guys in their right positions. Get out of the vanilla stuff. Don't run nickel all the time just because you think it's a passing down and a team comes out with 2 tight ends. They're going to run the football. I mean, we saw that sometimes this year. I'm like, what? Come on now. What are we doing? Get bigger bodies on the field. They're going to run it. And the Steelers were still in nickel. So it's one of those things where the D-line has to be better, but they also have to have a lot of help to be better. Does that make sense? I mean, yes, we got to get the right pieces, but you also have to get those pieces in the right position, in the scheme, and the game plans have to be better. If they are, I feel like the Steelers can have something. Be really interested about, free agency and what the Steelers do there. But yeah, we've got an opportunity to upgrade our D-line big time. We need to do that. So let's get to the poll question. Okay. What do you believe is the most critical improvement needed for the Steelers' defensive line heading into next season? A, strengthening the run defense. Ooh, Baltimore, 299 on the ground in the playoff game. Yuck. B, improving the pass rush. C, correctly positioning players like Keanu Benton, getting guys in the right position. Or D, addressing the depth. So strengthen run defense, improving pass rush wins, correctly positioning players in the right position, and addressing the depth. So be interested to see what you guys have to say about that, because that, to me, is the key to what's going on. I think getting guys in the right position, obviously adding everybody and all that, but let's get some guys in the right position and let's not be so vanilla. Let's not be so vanilla. Let's get some things going. So let's move on, people. Let's move on. So another mock draft, Big B's mock draft, going 1 through 7, um, 7 rounds. Very interesting. Um, Again, I decided this time I'm going to start with a wide receiver. Okay, doesn't mean the Steelers are going to do that, but I started with the wide receiver this time. So let's go through this thing, man. First up, round 1, pick 21, excuse me. Luther Burton out of Missouri. You know, shiftiness, explosive, can catch the football. I like Luther Burton. We need some explosion on the outside. The only issue is he might need some polishing with his route running. He might need that. So while it was iffy, I thought, you know what? Let's take him round 1. Let's get something going. Now, again, when you do these mock drafts, you got to run some sort of a simulator type thing, which is what I did. Some guys weren't available at wide receiver at 21. So Luther Burton was, and that's who I took. Moving on, at number 52, Alfred Collins, D-line out of Texas. Feels a need, athletic, big boy, plays with his hands, plays with a lot of enthusiasm. I like him a lot. Not one of the bigger names that people are talking about, but here's the thing when you start talking about an NFL draft. Everybody talks about mainly the top 5 guys. And then after that, it kind of dwindles down a little bit. Well, your roster is not made up of first-round draft picks. The majority of your roster is made up of middle-round guys, anywhere between the 2nd and the 6th round. That's where your roster is made. That's where a GM makes their money. So Alfred Collins, while not a name that everybody's talking about, I'm talking about him because he's really good. He's not one of the top name guys, but he is very good and exactly what the Steelers need. Big guy inside, can play nose tackle, eat up blockers, exactly what we're looking for. Okay, pick number 83, D.J. Giddens out of Kansas State. Ran faster than I thought he would run. He's shifty out of the backfield, can catch the ball out of the backfield, can take hits, can deliver punishment. You watch the tape on D.J. Giddens, look at his runs on the sideline. He doesn't run out of bounds. Now, he'll go out of bounds, but he delivers a blow. So I like DJ Giddens. He's powerful. He's shifty. He can catch the ball. He's big, and he's faster than what I thought. I thought he was a little nicked up near the end of last year. About the middle of the year, he got a little nicked up. Kept playing, but he got nicked up. But I like his tape. And you'll, guys, if you don't know him, you'll love his mindset. Very humble young man. Very humble young man and unassuming. Something that, sometimes the Steelers kind of need that guy. The unassuming guy that's really good at his job, but he just comes to work, gets it in, comes and plays on Sundays, and then goes home, just lays back and chills. That's DJ Giddens. 122, Tyler Shuck, QB out of Louisville. Now, in the simulator, I couldn't believe that he was still available. But if he's available, 4th round, I'm penciling him in. Steelers got to take him. Like I said, he's big, 6'6", 240, I believe. He's a big guy. Ran a 4.6 40. Big, strong arm, accurate with the football. Had injury issues at Oregon and Texas Tech. Had injury issues, but it wasn't like ligament or shoulder or elbow issues. It was more broken bones, stuff that is not lingering. You know what I mean? So, and he didn't get hurt this year. And he was out there all year, and he took some shots. because Louisville's offensive line wasn't the greatest, but I like him. He's older, again, more mature, but quarterbacks are going to play until the mid-30s. And when I may say mid-30s, like 37, 38. If you got a decade out of Tyler Shook, would you be okay with that? Because I think I'd be okay with having a quarterback that was pretty good for a decade. I could live with that. I could live with that. Going at 163, Za Frazier, cornerback, UTSA. Again, another name that maybe a lot of people don't know because you talk about the names at the top of the draft, but as they fall a little further down, this is a guy that can play some really good football. He could come in and start for the Steelers immediately. This is not a project. He may get drafted a little lower, but he's not a project. One thing about him, he tackles. And you know how we like our corners to tackle. He does that. And at 225, Howard Cross, D-line from Notre Dame. Now, this is a guy whose stock really dropped. Like last year, they were talking about him that he was going to be a top 10 pick, and his stock just dropped. I mean, just the bottom fell out of it. However, still very good. He's a technician. You know, you got to work on more explosiveness, and I think that's where he falls behind a little bit. But if we can get some of that explosiveness and get him to play with a little bit more sense of urgency, I like Howard Cross, especially where we would be drafting him. I like Howard Cross. 239 is Johan, and I think it's Mahimi, D-line, or excuse me, O-line out of USC. Again, you never stop investing in offensive line. You never stop investing in offensive line. Whether you need a starter, whether you need a backup, in every draft, I think you take an offensive lineman. I really believe that. I really do. Just for the simple fact, guys get hurt. Offensive line guys get rolled up on all the time. Ankles, knees, whatever it is. It happens, unfortunately. And you can never have enough good offensive linemen. This would obviously be a depth piece, but somebody that could develop into a starter. Who knows? Look at Mason McCormick. Didn't think he was going to play this past year, and he had to. So, and then last but not least, 247, Mello Dodson. Now, I like Mello. I think when the pro day comes around, I think he's going to move up on the draft boards. I really do. When the Big 12 pro day, because the Big 12 does a pro day. They don't do it by schools. The entire conference comes to Dallas, right around the corner from me, in Frisco, and they have their combine there at the Star. So I might try to sneak in there. We'll see what kind of credentials your old Big B can come up with. I may have to talk to somebody about trying to get some credentials to that for at least a day. But either way, Mello Dodson, a guy to keep your eyes on. Because personally, I think he's better than Kobe Bryant, who's his teammate at Kansas. I think he's better than him. He's bigger, and I think he's faster. But we'll see. But that's the draft that I have for this time around. Again, we'll have more of them. I like this one. Again, serves a need, all the needs that we need. Maybe not the order that you guys would like. It may not even be the order that I like. But you know what? You can't. What fun is it to have a mock draft and you take the same positions in the same spot every single time? That's not any fun. You know what I mean? Let's have some fun with this stuff. So that's why I changed it around. I promise you the next time we do a mock draft, it'll be somebody different going first as far as position. I might even have quarterback. Who the hell knows? Might be running back. You never know. You just never know. Because the one thing that I know for a fact, we don't know what these teams are going to do. We don't know what they're going to do. So when you don't know that, putting it together and putting a bunch of different formulas and formats out there, to me, that makes it fun. So, look, man, the Steelers have a lot to do. Oh, excuse me. We got a poll question. Poll 4. I forgot. I apologize. Poll number 4. Which of Big B's projected draft picks would have the biggest impact on the Steelers' 2024 season? So, which of my Big B's projected draft picks would have the biggest impact on the Steelers' 2024 season? A, is it Luther Burton? B, Alfred Collins? C, DJ Giddens? Or D, Za Frazier? Who do you think would have the most impact or the biggest impact? Interesting. Interesting. So, like I was mentioning before, I was rudely interrupted by myself. Um, Look, the Steelers have a lot. They've got a lot that they've got to do. And look, I've been the most impatient guy as far as a Steeler fan, it seems, on the internet these days. Because all I have talked about, why aren't they moving? Why aren't they doing this? And in panic mode. Well, I kind of am because there's there's no reason to be waiting. And there's no reason to be begging certain people, begging them to do something, make some decisions. But we're down to the nitty gritty. Free agency is about to start. And since it's about to start, we got to be on our P's and Q's when this thing rolls around. But here's the thing, people. I just have a feeling that the Steelers are going to spend some big money. I know that's not been what we've done before. That's not our MO. I just believe the Steelers are going to spend some big, big money, and they're going to surprise us. They're going to surprise us. Corner, D-line, wide receiver. I think we hit it all in free agency, and I think that's just my personal opinion. I believe that's what they're going to do, because otherwise, what are we doing? And I think they've started to listen. Hey, fans are starting to get restless with the nonsense. They're starting to get restless with the nonsense. It's time to kick this thing into high gear. At least they better be listening to us, because we figured it out. We understand what's going on. It's time to start winning. And you can't win. You need players to win. You need players to win. Steelers got to do that. Got to change up what they've always done and make some things happen in this offseason. So I'm looking forward to it, man. Appreciate you all. That's all I got for you today. Again, I appreciate you bearing with me being sick, but I'm not going to stop as long as I can talk for a little while anyway. I'm going to do this. So make sure you check us out. Again, like, follow, subscribe, continue to leave comments, and always hit the notification bell. And make sure if you want to help support the channel as far as a membership that you sign up there, man. Thank you guys, and aloha.